Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome everyone here this afternoon. I make the time 3 o'clock. It is our council meeting for April the 24th, 2018. I would like to remind everyone again that this meeting, as always, is web streamed and televised. And I would ask those in attendance to ensure their phones are in the silent mode. If they would, please, that would help. Judy Ann McCauley, again, is our camera volunteer for this afternoon / this evening. Item 2 on the agenda is the approval or changes to our agenda. As you can see on your sheet on your desk, that there is one change proposed to the agenda, and that is to withdraw a bylaw. And that bylaw is 2018-41, which is on page 169 of your agenda. This is a bylaw to receive the decision of the Hastings decision. And I'll have our clerk explain why this is on here to withdraw this decision of the local planning appeal tribunal. Mr. Rizal, please, if you will.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's just to give us an opportunity to pursue the local planning authority or /OMB to get them to issue a bylaw directly to us in consultation with planning staff. Just something clear for the record.
Okay, so it's housekeeping. Thank you. Any discussions on this? Yes, Councillor Black?
On that one, could I ask, I was asking Andy about the whole process of that bylaw and so on and so forth. He was explaining it to me. So what you're saying, through you to Andy, to the clerk, like this will come back later on as a more directive from the province rather than the way you're trying to do it now. Is that what you're saying?
I think that's the hope, and I think 2 weeks is the hope of the time frame.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anything further? Moved by Councillor Wells, seconded by Councillor Geisens, that the agenda be approved as amended with this one change. Those in favor? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. That sets our agenda for this evening. Are there any disclosure of pecuniary interest to declare? I hear none. No presentations are scheduled for this meeting. I will then ask you to go to page 7. This is the adoption and/or correction of our council meeting minutes from 2 weeks ago. That was April the 10th, 2018. Councillor Black, on these minutes, please.
Yeah, I wondered, I sent out an email 2 weeks ago about these minutes, and I was wondering if these minutes could include and reflect the fact that I voted in favor of the resolution from the amendment and the main motion. I voted for the amendment, and then, as you know, you sort of went to speak, and I had to leave. So I didn't have the opportunity. I thought that it was done, and it really wasn't. So I wondered if council would allow that to be included and reflected in those minutes, that I voted in favor of it.
Yeah, I think you will recall, I did apologize to Councillor Black. We know where he went, but unfortunately, I did not treat the motion as an amended motion, and I got ahead of myself, and then I went back in your absence to ask for those that supported the motion as amended, correct? So my apologies to you. I know you would have wanted to be here, and that's not your fault, that's mine. Can I have a show of hands that allow that just to be put into the minutes, that Councillor Black was absent for that and would have voted in favor
Favor
of
of
that?
it.
Thank you. Can I have a show of hands for the record? Opposed?
Yeah. No,
Okay, so
thank you. I
that
appreciate
will be
that.
added, thank you. So we know where you stand on that. Thank you, Councillor Black. Is there anything else in those agenda minutes starting on page 7 from our previous council agenda? Hearing nothing, I will declare those. Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Columbus.
Clerk, will that won't be counted as a vote, it would just be noted that that's what Councillor Black wanted, right? It's not going to be counted as a vote, just be clarified that he was away and he was in support of Council's decision.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe the intent is that the record will be, the official minutes will be amended to show that he voted in favor, but these minutes will also reflect that it was council's decision today that made that change.
Okay. Councillor Geisens.
Thank you. So if it comes along that somehow or other I had to leave for a little while, and will that then happen with every one of us around the table? To me, if you're not here for a vote, I can't see how you can then be put back into that vote, whether it's 1 week or 2 weeks or whatever it is. To me, I don't believe that's right. If you're not here, then it shouldn't count as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Black.
Maybe just to explain once again, it wasn't my fault, and the mayor already said and apologized, didn't necessarily have to apologize, but the reason I left is because I had to go, and I thought the vote was over, because the mayor was starting to speak. And as it turned out, it wasn't, and the mayor did realize it, and you had the vote without me here, and I came back and I had no idea that that vote had occurred. And had I been here or stayed, I would have voted in favor. So I think it's an unusual circumstance, and I would agree that it shouldn't occur all the time, you know, but under these circumstances, I think it was legitimate on my part and on the mayor's part.
I think it's fair to say, if I may, that whether you were here and voted or not, it's not going to change the outcome of what it was. It's merely you would like it to be noted that through no error of yours, you were in the men's room, let's be honest. And you wouldn't have been there had I not made the mistake. So I don't think it's going to change the outcome. But, pardon? I'm going to move on. And certainly, Councillor Geisens has given some food for thought, whether you're in the men's room or you're not here, or you were here and you left and went home, or whatever. So, did you wish to comment? I haven't run into this one. I started this, and I apologize. I just made a mistake. Well,
I can perhaps
You two can-
clarify. So in instances like this, there are two sets of council minutes. So the original council minutes that are presented in the agenda today still exist, and an amended set will also be created. So there will be in the record to clearly show that this had occurred, and people will be historically able to track back what happened here. So it's not that we're fudging the official record in any way.
Mr. Cribb, do you wish to add anything?
Just that, for sake of clarity, Councillor Geisens is absolutely correct with respect to procedural, how we should govern ourselves. If you're not in the room, you cannot vote. That's it. Stop talking. That being said, in this instance, it has no impact whatsoever on the fundamental outcome of the vote. It wasn't close. This has been a fundamentally important dialogue for the community, and because of a very innocuous miscommunication, misunderstanding, we're allowing one member to officially clarify his stance. So from an administrative position, I'm sure that neither the clerk nor I view this as precedent setting, because it has no constructive impact on the vote. If it were 5-4 or 4-5, we could not possibly allow this. If you're not present, you cannot vote. So Councillor Geisens is absolutely correct, but we're not setting a precedent here because it's just an acknowledgement of a widely held public position. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. I am now on page 21, Communications. We'll go through these one at a time. It's been moved by Councillor Sonnenberg and seconded by Councillor Geisens that the LCBO request for designation as event of municipal significance on May 26th and 27th, 2018, at the Catherwood and the Kiln be approved pending receipt of all other required approvals. And of course, they are located in Victoria. Discussion? Those in favor of this request? I see everyone voting in favor. I'll declare that carried. The second communication item, it's been moved by Councillor Height and seconded by Councillor Sonnenberg that the special occasion permit of Tammy Thompson for a buck and doe on May the 26th, 2018 at the Port Rowan Community Center be approved pending a receipt of all other required approvals. Discussion on Ms. Thompson's request. I will call the question. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, it has been moved by Councillor Wells, seconded by Councillor Height, that the LCBO special occasion permit request for invasion of the dragons at the Shadow Lake Alice Street in Waterford on July the 21st, 2018 be approved, pending receipt of all other required approvals. Discussion. Those in favor? Carried. Next, it has been moved by Councillor Geisens and seconded by Councillor Wells that the LCBO request for designation as event of municipal significance on April the 29th, 2018 at the Waterford Heritage and Agricultural Museum be approved pending receipt of all other required approvals. Discussion? In favor? Carried. Thank you. No, hey. You're good. Last but certainly not least, moved by Councillor Sonnenberg, seconded by Councillor Height, that Rick Beniff Concrete be granted an exemption to the half-load restriction to pour concrete on Wyndham Road number 3. Discussion on this request. Councillor Black.
Just wondered if we had any feedback from Public Works on this.
Feedback, Lee?
Through the mayor to council, normally we require a significant amount of additional information. It's very difficult based on this request. We don't have sufficient information. That being said, half-load season comes off next week. Monday is the last day of half-load season. Given our current temperatures, we believe that there's no frost left in the roads, and so we would have no objection at this time. And hopefully we won't be seeing these next year when we've updated the request.
Thank you, Lee, for that. Any further questions, discussion? Councillor Columbus.
Well, Mr. Mayor, maybe these cement trucks, once they're loaded, they'll squash the road down and it'll be smoother.
That's like saying if you hit me harder, I won't feel it as much. Hey, you're probably right. Any other discussion? Those in favor? Carried. Thank you. And Lee, thank you. Okay, on to committee reports. I'm on page 29, gentlemen. It's been moved by Wells, seconded by Sonnenberg, that the open and closed session minutes of the council and committee meeting of April the 17th, 2018 be approved as presented. That is last week's CIC meeting. Any discussion here on this motion? Those in favor? Carried, thank you. On to page 35, Norfolk Economic Advisory Committee minutes. It's been moved by Councillor Height, seconded by Councillor Wells. The Norfolk Economic Advisory Committee minutes of February the 12th, 2018 be received as information. Any discussion on these minutes? Councillor Oliver and then Columbus, please.
Mr. Mayor, does your motion actually say economic or does it say environmental?
This one says economic.
Well, it shouldn't, I don't think.
Oh, boy. Thank you, sir. Councillor Columbus?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I was just wondering, what is the current zoning on this particular property where they want to do the glamping, the 10 glamping sites?
You're talking a specific property?
Right.
Which one?
What is the zoning on page 35 at the bottom under new business?
Okay. The glamping request, campground on St. John's Road East. Yeah, go ahead, Pam.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Klumpus, I believe it's agriculture, but it also has some special provisions on it. So I can get back to you with that via email if you like.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? This is to receive the Environmental Advisory Committee minutes as information. Those in favor of the motion? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Another set of minutes to receive. It's been moved by Councillor Height and seconded by Councillor Sonnenberg that the Norfolk County Accessibility Advisory Committee minutes of April the 17th, 2018 be received as information. Questions on this set of minutes? Hearing none, those in favor? Opposed? Carried. There is one consent item tonight on our agenda. You will find it on page 41. This is our staff memo on the Hastings Drive OMB decision follow-up. Councillor Black, you have already indicated to us that you wish to discuss this OMB, our tribunal decision memo. So I would suggest that we proceed directly into that discussion at this time unless there are any objections. Councillor Height?
Thank you, Mayor Luke. I apologize for not catching this earlier. I thought when we withdrew the revised bylaw that it also took this memo and deferred it for 2 weeks. But if that's not the case, I would have to declare a conflict as I'm a property owner in the infected area.
Okay, and
So-
let me get some direction from the clerk. When I got this agenda Friday and went over on the weekend, certainly we weren't aware of this that we dealt with earlier. So we dealt with this. I was wondering whether to proceed or not with item 8A. Mr. Clerk, what's your thoughts here?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the only thing that's been withdrawn has been the bylaw, so the memo is still rightly before council, and your declaration, anytime that you become aware of a disclosure of pecuniary interest, it's appropriate to get up and declare it, as you did, Councillor Height.
Yeah, I see your point. Well done. Thank you, sir, and we'll note the conflict of interest. Thank you. I will read the motion and we'll turn it over to Councillor Black. Right? I'm going to read the motion. I'll turn it open to you for discussion. Moved by Councillor Oliver, seconded by Councillor Wells, that the staff memo of Pamela Dusling regarding Hastings Drive OMB decision be received as information. Councillor Black.
Thank you very much, Mayor Luke, and through you to staff. I do have a number of questions for, I guess, Pam or Fritz, and in regards to the OMB ruling. And I guess what I'm seeking is some clarity. I'd like to be on the same page as staff as we move forward with this. I think it's probably a huge disappointment for some people, but for others, I guess maybe a vindication of their position. But it does say that the trailers are not a permitted use. So I'm wondering through you to Fritz how that will be dealt with.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. How that will be dealt with, it's in the memo as well. The commencement of the enforcement will begin in May. What we are looking at doing is creating a letter, a notification to all the property owners on Hastings Drive to make them aware of this decision, and also let them know that the zone change and the permitted and prohibited uses that are now in place for Hastings Drive. So that'll be our first step. We're not there tomorrow to lay the charges or anything like that. We're certainly going to be letting people know where the decision is at. And then from that point on, we will be looking at each individual property to see what is or is not enforceable, and to be enforced. And then that would include the trailers as well. And according to the OMB decision, the trailers are prohibited on the properties, so they will be notified.
All right, and I was going to ask you if there was going to be any communications going out. You've indicated that there will be, and I guess would it be sort of a summary of what the order has said, what the uses are and what they aren't?
I think that would, through you, Mr. Mayor, I think that'd probably be the wise thing to do, is just to align as clearly as possible to the property owners, perhaps a copy of the OMB order attached to the letter, a reference to the website or something in that nature, and also a brief understanding of what are prohibited and what are permitted uses on those lands.
Well, I see that it is pretty restrictive, and if you look over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of site alteration, gravel deposited, fences put up, docks built, a number of things that are against this order. So I'm wondering, going ahead, will they be allowed to remain, or would they have to be removed?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we're going to, as I said, have to look at each of the properties on a case-by-case basis and to see what was permitted and what was not permitted at the time. And that will then determine whether or not we proceed or not. But we will have to look at these on a case-by-case basis. Some properties do have the benefit of legal nonconforming and some may not. But until we know and do the investigation on each property, we can't put a general decision out there how that's going to be handled. It's going to be handled on a case-by-case, and what was permitted then, what is permitted now, and how we deal with that in the future.
Okay, so in the beginning, you will be proactive rather than, and I suppose once the dust settles, then it would be a reactive or based on complaint?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. I think as of May 1st, the letter goes out putting everybody on notice of what the decision is. And at some point shortly after that, we will be doing some proactive enforcement on some of the immediate concerns that we have that are in clear contravention. and then we'll proceed moving forward. It will be on a complaint basis, and then we'll respond accordingly.
Okay, and I'm wondering, would you be putting up any signs in the beginning of the restricted area? Would there be a sign, you know, just indicating that it is restrictive?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think you're referring to a signage as you enter into Hastings Drive itself at the entrance of the road?
Well, to the restricted area.
Yeah, so we haven't had that discussion yet, but that's certainly something we can look at, working with Public Works, and to perhaps see if we can put some sort of communication at the street, at the entrance to the Hastings Drive to inform them what are some of the restrictions. We don't know. We haven't had that discussion yet, but that may be something we look at.
Okay, well, no, I appreciate that, and Mr. Mayor, I guess there is a motion on the floor, and just speaking in favor of the motion, compelled to thank staff for all the hard work that they've done on this, and it has been a very long road from both planning staff and from enforcement. It's been a very difficult time for staff, I know that, because of the push and pull. It's been a difficult time for everyone. But it just seems, I can't help but note, Mr. Mayor, that as we received this OMB order, we were at the same time experiencing an ice storm and flooding on Hastings, and the unfortunate storm demolition of a cottage at the very end. It was like nature was trying to give us an example why the OMB ruling was as it was. And I certainly support it from the point of view of the protection of people, protection of property, and the protection of the environment. Thank you.
Councillor Oliver, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The motion we're dealing with this afternoon strictly receives this information memo as information. And
That's
all.
correct.
It's not establishing any new policy or reinforcing anything. I just wanted to make that point. But I do have two questions, Mr. Mayor. First of all, perhaps for Mr. Enslin again. And I'm looking on page 43 of our agenda, page 3 of this information piece, item number 10, which talks about these existing structures. And I know the OMB ruling did allow for the launching of boats from vacant lot properties, as I recall, going forward. And I also recall that there are more than one, I think, of the lots on which permission had been granted from LPRCA and or MNRF, for example, for the construction of boat docks. So if there's a property there that has such a structure on it, will those scenarios be these ones where it is considered to be legally non-conforming and therefore allowed to stay?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, again, as I indicated earlier, we're going to look at those properties on an individual basis to determine what and if there are legal non-conforming clauses that we can look at. So if there's an existing dock or an existing ramp and it was permitted under a previous bylaw or previous authority, then we would look at that. But it's hard to determine now what is yes or no until we look at each individual lot.
I can appreciate that, and thank you for that, Fritz. I guess for me, the existence of a permit from another agency, i.e. LPRCA and or MNRF, is going to be more clear for me than the zoning previously, because we all know that the old zoning was anything but clear on things like boat docks. So I just appreciate the fact that we'll have to look at those as we go forward. And my other question, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to direct this one to the clerk, and it goes back to the matter of the deferral today of a bylaw to receive the OMB decision. I guess I'm confused to the clerk as to what kind of bylaw we're going to get from the OMB. If I heard you correctly, Andy, you're deferring this because we're awaiting a bylaw from the OMB. Well, whomever. Sorry, You're right. It was at their request. So perhaps to Mr. Baird or Ms. Doosley. What would a bylaw from the OMB be or state?
Mary Elder, please.
Or Mary, I'm sorry.
Through the mayor, the actual appeal the tribunal's order states that it was excerpting only Section 4 of the draft amendment, and that's what was in the decision, was only Section 4. So there's 3 other administrative matters that need to be dealt with. And the board did not attach that draft settlement as its final direction to its order. So staff has had to go back this week. I was away last week, so this week I was able to grab that exhibit, pull out Section 15, and produce the document, the full document. And that's the document that needs to come to council.
Councillor Branton, then Columbus.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Mayor Luke. I think I'm on the same page as Councillor Oliver, and I guess my first question through you to staff is, I realize the OMB has made a decision, and I'm prepared to live by that. My comments, though, or question is it common for the OMB to write a bylaw for a municipality? They made their decision, did they not, based on all the evidence that was before them? Have they done that in the past, prepared a bylaw?
Through the mayor, in the past, yes, I have received bylaws attached to OMB orders, and then we have just received them we took off the signature part and put on the order of the board and give the date that order was given. So yes, we have done it in the past, and it's normal for the board, if they have a bylaw, to attach it.
If they have a bylaw?
Yes, and so
But
when
you're
this...
asking them to write a bylaw now?
No, we're not.
Oh.
They were given a draft settlement at the hearing, and then in their review of that, they have ordered that draft settlement is what they want to see in our bylaw. So in our county comprehensive bylaw when we consolidate it.
Okay, I guess I'll wait till we see the bylaw. Okay. I guess I'm wondering, like, along the same lines as Councillor Oliver, Fritz, the LPRCA issued permits for change houses. And it's my understanding that up until this OMB decision, we were operating under the 1985 bylaw, correct? So anything that we issued, are they not non-conforming? If we did it in accordance with the information in front of us?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, again, I'm not going to comment on individual, but in that particular case, if there was a change house that was built, it was probably exempt from permit because it didn't meet the square footage. So
right.
It would be the zoning bylaw and conservation authority approval that would be subject to that change house. If that was approved and it was permitted under the bylaw at the time, then my understanding would be it would probably be considered possible legal nonconforming.
Okay.
There was no prohibition in the previous bylaw. So.
Okay, thank you. My next question is on page 2, on page 42 of our agenda. It refers to a change house is not defined currently in our bylaws, correct?
Yeah.
Not defined. So are we going to make a definition, or do you expect that definition to come from the province?
Through the mayor, we have been doing semi-annually or annually updates to our comprehensive zoning bylaw, looking at definitions or other sections that need a bit of revision, and bringing forward to you a staff report for consideration with options. And that's what will be happening, is planning staff will be bringing forward another update to the zoning bylaw, and they will include a discussion of change houses and a definition in that work.
Okay, and is that fair to say that those can be challenged by any individual? Is a definition change by law, or whatever you want, when you bring that forward, does the public have a right to challenge that definition?
Through the mayor, yes, as with any zoning bylaw amendment council passes, the public has a right to appeal.
Okay, thank you. And my last one is number 8 on that list. It says day use is currently not defined, a defined term within the current zoning bylaw. And again, there seems to be, I've had this question from some of the parties or property owners in that Hastings Drive area, that day use was not defined, and I don't have my copy of the decision with me, but it was not defined in there, or it is defined?
Through the mayor, day use was not defined in the board order.
Okay, so do you have as staff, will you define that, or how does that take place? Because, I mean, there's a difference of opinion on what day use is. Day, you know, and as they say, it's light all day and dark all night. So what does it mean, I guess?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's something we're going to certainly narrow down and define, or at least interpret from our perspective. It's generally at dawn to dusk. Somebody will say, what's dawn to dusk? Is it when the sun goes below the horizon, or is it, you know, when it's black and the stars are out? We don't know. So I know that in the Hastings Drive study, they had indicated a 5 a.m. to 11 p.m., so we may be looking at a time frame of 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. as per the Hastings Drive study. So we're looking at that, but that's not confirmed.
But that was not in the decision.
I'm sorry?
That was not in the OMB decision.
That was not in the OMB decision.
So again, can that item, when you make a definition of day use, can that be challenged by any applicant or occupier of properties down there?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, it's the same as any other definition. It can be challenged, as Mary mentioned earlier. If it's an interpretation of staff. So whether it's defined or whether it's going to be interpreted, that's what we need to look at, whether we're going to actually define day use or whether we're just going to simply leave it as an interpretation.
Okay. Okay, and just to summarize, Your Worship, you know, Councillor Black and others did say that it's been a long process, and I guess I do recall being present at the St. Williams Community Hall when we started into this process. And I'll say I was very optimistic at the time that property owners had some rights, but I guess I find it very frustrating today that we can sit here and make rules through the province, mind you, that prohibits people the quiet enjoyment of their property. And I think it's, in my opinion, a sad day for property owners and rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Columbus.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple questions here. First of all, if somebody were to just sit on the beach for the day and wish to put a tent up to keep the sun off their children or something, would that be permissible or would that be objectable?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, again, if we're under a day use, then certainly being defined as being a personal use and enjoyment of vacant lands for the day. So, I mean, if somebody needs to put up a sun shelter because it's too hot, I don't think that's what we're talking about here. As long as it's removed at the end of the day, it's not left there overnight.
Okay, thank you. And going back to the cottage, say it's shifted off its foundation, and I know it's got the word may be possible. Would your department supply the applicant with a building permit if it has to be put back on its foundation?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that would have to be also looked at, working with an engineer to determine whether it's structurally feasible. We're going to rely on some expert professional design consultant to deal with that. There's going to be conversations with our LPRCA, the Ministry of Natural Resources, and anyone else that would be involved. So we would do a review of a building permit application like any other application and make sure that all the applicable laws are complied with. But it is doable under the zoning bylaw. It does talk about the structure may be rebuilt on the same footprint, subject to all applicable regulations, permits, and legislations. So it is possible. We just can't guarantee it because we don't know what those other regulations are going to restrict from.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Black?
Mayor Luke, another question that just came to my mind, and through you to Mary and Pam, and it's in regards to former 1985 Township of Norfolk's Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 185, and I'm still confused about this. This is my understanding of it, that this bylaw was put in place, which did say that the land was hazard land and did allow some uses. Then later on, it was repealed and kind of split in two, where one area had the uses, but the Hastings area didn't. So that's kind of my understanding. Is that right or wrong, or could you explain to me what was the status of the Norfolk Township Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw, number 85, just prior to April 16th? Not following me? You got a confused look on your face, but I am confused about how that 85 bylaw operated before. It seemed to be, it was put in place, then there were some changes made. So I'm wondering what the permitted uses under that bylaw were prior to 16th of April this year.
Sorry, I didn't bring my books with me, Mr. Mayor. But there was a list in that one NO 85 of permitted uses, and those were in effect from the time it was passed until April 16th. What we did when we created the comprehensive zoning bylaw is we retained the uses that were permitted on Hastings Drive. And so those uses continued right from 85 until April 16th. Now you also mentioned something about a little difference for the first part of Hastings Drive, I'll call it, and then the later part. So where the paved road is opposed to where the gravel is. After the 89 Lakeshore Management Plan by the Conservation Authority, there was some shoreline management and some recommendations in that. And part of that was that that part where it's paved is at higher elevation and is not as susceptible to erosion. And I believe, from what I understand, that's why they put a special provision on that let it be resort residential as opposed to hazard land.
Okay, so really like that change would affect the easterly area of Hastings, not the westerly area.
That would be correct through the
Yep.
mayor.
Okay, I think I understand it now. Thank you.
Anyone else? Recommendation is to receive as information the Hastings Drive OMB decision. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried, thank you. We have one closed session at this time too. It has been moved by Councillor Wells and seconded by Councillor Sonnenberg that council move into closed session at 3:41 p.m. to discuss matters pursuant to Section 239-2F of the Municipal Act 2001. SO 2001 C-25 is amended as the subject matter pertains to advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. Those in favor of going in closed session, please. Those that has carried. We will go, my guess is 15 to 20 minutes. I do not know. Let's go to closed session, please.
On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario's south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work, we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just a place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Norfolk, 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 you won't be a stranger long. On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work, we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just the place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger along. Norfolk, 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 you won't be a stranger along. On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work, we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwood